Hello, my name's Andrew Judd, and I'd like to show you a few different ways to create flesh colors using a very limited palette of 2 yellows, 2 reds, and 2 blues. Flesh colors are one of those things everyone struggles with, no matter what stage you're at in your painting career or hobby. So follow along with me and let's see how it goes for you. This is a standard basic palette, and I take this with me when I'm painting outdoors or if I'm going to a class and trying to practice painting portraits. It's very versatile. I have a warm and cool of each primary. We were taught that our primary colors were basically red, yellow, and blue, which is true. We learned that in grade school, and it's essentially true. But when you're painting, you need more than just one red, yellow, or blue. I'll get into that in more detail later, but this is a good palette to start with. So I have titanium white, cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, cobalt blue, and ultramarine blue. And as far as which ones are warm and cool, the cadmium yellow is warm. The cadmium red is warm. The ultramarine blue is warm. So you can group those. Cool colors are yellow ochre. It's really true. I'll show you in another video how that works. Alizarin crimson is cool. And cobalt blue is cool as well. And I call it cobalt blue because I just find that easier to remember. So those are the basic colors I use. Sometimes I add more, but I think you'll find this is a great basic palette, whether you're a beginner or an advanced painter. So as you can see, I've mixed these colors ahead of time, but let me give you a couple of examples. I'm going to take a warm palette, which consists of cadmium yellow, cadmium red, and a little bit of ultramarine blue, which is a warm blue. I'm going to mix those together. A little bit on the green side. I don't know if you can see that. I'm just going to bring in a little bit more red. Whenever you see too much green in your mix, just put in a little bit more red because red is a complement color. So I'm going to start with that color there, which is a fairly dark base, and then I'm going to add in white. And let's see what we come up with. Okay, that's pretty good. It's not exactly what we see above here. You can see there's a difference. So if I want to make it a little more yellow, which it looks like it is there, I just go back to my yellow, add a little bit of that in. A little bit more. A yellower skin. It looks like I could use a little more cadmium red as well. So I'm just going to put a little more of that in. You can see it's a very, very sensitive thing to mix a color to match, but it can be done. Here we go. Put a little more yellow in again. Now it's getting towards the orange side, so I have to be careful with that. Let's see how close I got. It's not bang on. It's a little dark. But you can see it's close. It's still in the same family. So if you can keep your colors in the same family, it's a lot easier to control. It's when you start mixing all these other colors in that you're going to have some difficulty. You have to have some control in your process. And more than anything, the value has to be right. So you'll see, if I put this color here now, just adding a little more white into it, I've got an almost perfect mix, matching the color I had before. Let's do that with the cool mix. So the cool mix is going to be a combination of yellow ochre, and yes, yellow ochre is a cool yellow. I'll explain that in a future video. So I'm going to take my yellow ochre, I'm going to bring in some alizarin crimson, Here's some alizarin. And I'm going to bring in the cobalt blue because cobalt blue is a cool blue. I'm going to mix that together. I'm trying to match something that I see here first. So it looks like it could have a little bit more alizarin crimson. I'm matching the darker one first to see if I can get close when I add white. And I'm going to bring in a little bit more ochre. And let's see where this is. I can adjust it as I go. So I'm going to add white. Here comes the white. Bring that up in value. You can see it's gone very red. So if I've got too much alizarin in there, I need to actually take away from that. I'm going to bring in a little more of the yellow, and I'm going to bring in a little bit more of the blue. I've only got 3 colors to work with here, so plus white. So, I went into ultramarine by mistake. An easy thing, you have to be careful that you're watching what colors you're mixing in. Okay, here we go. Now I've got lots of blue, bring in a little more red, and a little more yellow. I'm only working with these 4 colors. So in theory, I should be able to get back to it. So let's see what happens. I'm going to mix in more white. You can see it's gone very violet on me, which means there's too much blue and too much red. So I'll bring in more yellow ochre. It actually makes sense when you start painting this way. And if you struggle to get to the right color, just know that so do I. It's normal. You don't have to be too concerned about it. Okay, now when I add the white in, white actually cools the color. That's what it does, it lightens and it cools. Now it's a little bit warm when I look at that beside the other color. The value is pretty good when I put it over top. Maybe I could get away with that in a face. Maybe I need a little warmer color on one side or as the plane changes. But here we go, I'm going to bring in a little bit more of the cobalt blue, just a touch. I'm going to cool it down a little bit, and I'm going to add a little more white so the value is right. Really important to get that value right. You don't get the value right, you're dead in the water. Okay, so I'm going to put this here, and that's a pretty good match for that color there. Let me talk about this last mix of colors. This is a combination of warm and cool colors, this one right here. I won't take you through the whole process, but I'll explain what I've done. I started with cadmium yellow, which is warm, alizarin crimson, which is cool, and ultramarine blue, which is warm. I talk a lot about warm and cool colors. It's another way to keep control of your palette, and I'll talk about that in future videos. So I've mixed those 3 together, and I ended up with this kind of brown, muddy looking color. I added titanium white, and I ended up with a much lighter brown, or gray, if you will. As soon as you mix any 3 primaries together, you end up with something that is relatively gray, either leaning towards a red, yellow, or blue, basically. So I took that gray there and I brought in a warm primary, which is my cadmium red, a little bit of it, and you get a nice warm color that might be sort of the cheeks of a young child. You know, maybe rosy cheeks on a cold winter day. And then I mixed the cooler color, which is the alizarin crimson over here, and the alizarin crimson is a cooler flesh color, which you might see in the cheeks of someone who's a little older and their skin is pale. So there you have a warm and cool color mix coming from that gray that you see in the middle. I hope you've enjoyed this demonstration on how to paint flesh colors or skin tones with a red, yellow, blue, and white. If you've enjoyed this and you'd like to see some demos on other subjects, feel free to email me at andrewjudd@mac.com. So, happy painting, and hopefully I'll see you back here again.